Thank you for being with us today. We all know each other now. My name is Nada Farhat. I am blessed to be part of the Lebanese section, WILPF section, and the U.S. Middle East Peace and Justice Committee. I just want to take a couple of minutes to thank the Middle East Peace and Justice Committee, because if it wasn't for their commitment, if it wasn't for their complete dedication to the mission in the Middle East and to the region in general, not only to Lebanon, from the Palestinians to Yemen, Syrians, and to Lebanon, who I often feel that it's a forgotten country. I thank you. I thank you for your dedication and for your support to the Middle East in general. I have to tell you that when I started this linking the two sections together, I didn't think this task is going to be this difficult, because the road ahead of us, or this task ahead of us, is a bit complex, to say the least. Just because the situation in Lebanon is a bit complex. So I'm hoping with today we will be able to narrow down the points and pinpoint what exactly realistically we can do, and put a minimum steps without over promising, without over extending our means, to say the least. Obviously we're going to give it our best, but we want to put realistic hopes here and leave this with realistic hopes. I'm going to thank also, before we move forward, I'm going to thank the WILPF president, Darianne DeLuke. She's with us, joining us today. I thank her for her support to the Lebanese, the Middle East Peace and Justice. I want to thank Barbara and Odile, our co-chairs. They are wonderful, supportive all the time with their information and with their way of working within this committee. So that's all. I'm going to turn it into Barbara, and I will see you later. Barbara's going to take it from here.
I was going to say good morning, ladies, but then I remembered that it's evening in Lebanon now. So good evening to our sisters in Lebanon, and good morning or afternoon, depending on your time zone here in the US, to the members of our section who are on this call. It's so nice to be able to welcome our Lebanese sisters and to be able to hear from you regarding ways in which our U.S. Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee can work with you towards solving some of the many problems that you face. I've had the personal privilege to visit Lebanon twice, first in 1967 and again in 2009, when Samira Houri of the Lebanese section helped to show the group that I was leading on a friendship tour some of the significant places in Lebanese history, and to visit some of the Palestinian refugee camps. We were all very impressed by the courage of the Lebanese people in the face of adversity. And I'm so happy to welcome you now, since I was made to feel so welcome when I was in Lebanon. Our committee consists of a diverse cross-section of the US, with members representing all of our regions. We have contacts with our government representatives and our senators. At all levels of government, we have contacts, and we hope that we can apply pressure on them to change US policy in regard to the Middle East, and specifically as it relates to Lebanon. We want to catch up on what the latest news is in regard to your situation there on the ground, and to learn what you see as your greatest needs. We know that you have problems that range from the political through the economic and social spheres, and we also recognize that your problems are compounded by the US and its relationship with Israel, as well as its official stance towards Hezbollah, Syria, and Iran. And for some of our members, this is new territory, but for others, it's not. And all of us are interested in learning from you. So in the spirit of sisterhood, we welcome you and we're looking forward to what you have to tell us. Our discussion today will hopefully set us on a path to healing some of the trauma that you've been suffering recently. My co-chair on this committee, Odile Huguenot-Haber, is going to say a few words now. Odile?
We welcome you, Shireen, and I have not been in Lebanon as Barbara did. I have been many times in Palestine. I have spent time rebuilding Palestinian people's home and helping Bedouin to collect the crop of their field. So, or marching with Palestinian women and being chased by the army. So I have had many experience in the Middle East, and it's really a pleasure to be working for peace and justice with our sisters there. They have inspired me many times by their active position and active actions. And so I am now going to present Darian DeLu, who is our US president, and who has been our president since 2019. But for over many years, I have known Darian to be an active member of our US section. So I hope we can work with you in the future, especially focusing on US policy. And we are an active group, so don't hesitate. And it will be a pleasure to work with you. Thank you. Here is Darian, next.
And of course, one always has to remember to turn off mute. I'm very honored to welcome our sister WILPFers from Lebanon and the others who are participating in this, I guess it's a meeting this morning. It's very encouraging to see the blossoming of activism from our issue committees. With the changing of its name, the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee is really, or is it, yes, I hope I got it right, is really taking up all kinds of action. So I want to just say that the WILPF US section apologizes for the behaviors of the US government. I think you all know that we certainly don't agree with, unfortunately, the great majority of the US government's policies and programs. At the same time, we have a long history of pushing for change and seeking out alternatives. I believe that the programs that the Middle East Peace and Justice Action Committee has been presenting give our members the information they need to have a better idea of what to support in the way of new policies. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Darian. Thank you. I appreciate your words. All of you, it means a lot to us to be working together. It's touching. I have to tell you, it's definitely touching. Before I turn the floor to Shireen, I can see it is very emotional these times in Lebanon. I want to ask you before we move to Shireen, do you know anything about, can somebody send the link to Hala Kilani, please? Tura? Okay, I'm going to turn the microphone to Shireen. Shireen, welcome, and the floor is yours. And we will send the link to Hala.
Thank you so much. I couldn't but have tears. It's so emotional, and also like to see how we are building peace, how we are building bridges, and still we are the ones who are trying to be sorry on behalf of others who were not being kind or nice to human beings at the grassroots level or within different and across nations. So Darian, a big warm hug to you, to Barbara, to everyone in the call and who was not able to be here. we want to thank you. I want to thank you on behalf of WILPF Lebanon and WILPF Palestine for your sincere words and sincere actions. And the mere fact of having the name Peace and Justice is exactly putting the issues at the, just a second, I'm just seeing myself. I want to see you as well. Okay. It's putting the right things. There is no peace without justice, and there's no justice without peace. So this is exactly what Middle East is all about. To start with what and how we can build on this sistership, I want to tell first Odile also. Odile, the Palestinians are not only suffering in Palestine in their land or in the occupied land, which is like part of the division that was created in the United Nations and the part that was supposed to be Palestine, but still also in Lebanon. Being refugees here in Lebanon does not give them certain rights, and I think Barbara saw that with her mere eyes. So this is related to the Lebanese context. But let me first to make this meeting fruitful, and so that we are able to build on that. We have built on three main areas for us to be able to help in building up some kind of collaboration and help in terms of policies and in terms of advocacies. I will keep the one regarding climate change until Hala joins us. But since Diala is not here, and Diala is a lawyer whose main work is she has been defending lots of protesters who were being used of inappropriate power by police security forces during the revolution. She was helping them all the way. Hala was part of the International Criminal Court. Hala was also, Diala was also helping for Palestine to be a state member at and to raise issues and of crimes against humanity against Israel within the Palestinian context. Unfortunately, she's not here to tell us more about what she's doing, but what she recommended for us in terms of the cooperation with WILPF US is to activate the International Convention Against Corruption and to initiate a national investigation in all considerable issues regarding the money transfers that were done from Lebanon after the Lebanese revolution in 2019. This had I noticed Hala. I tried to send you. Welcome, Hala. We tried lots of the banking system has been now it's in a collapse form. Lots of money was sent out from banks in an illegal way, and definitely every penny that is spent all over the world has to pass through New York. So this is like one of the issues we want to see. Where did this money go, and to see what kind of accountability we can have the politicians from, and how we are able to regain this money. This is one. I will go to the second point that I will raise, and then I will give back the floor to Nada so that she can pass it to Hala. What we have been passing through in Lebanon, maybe to sum up the question that Nada raised as well, is that Lebanon has been for a while, maybe in the past 30 years, it was an accumulation of things, but it was just that after the revolution, when things were obvious that nobody can hide anymore, things were set at the table somehow, is that Lebanon is now at the verge of collapse, a failed state. Lebanon was not able to pay its commitment to the international monetary, its Eurobond. Lebanon was unable to protect its citizens from this blast, the third non-nuclear blast in the world. Not only that, Lebanon was not able, the Lebanese government was unable until this moment to have a proper investigation to that blast. Not only that, human rights defenders are being killed. The last, who was a few days before our seminar the other day, and still no serious investigations are being held, as if the victim, as if like the victim is seen that a person committed suicide, or even like how the Minister of Health would say the explosion is a coincidence. The people who died in this explosion, it's by coincidence. This is not a coincidence. So a mere fact that it's a state, it's a government that is not able, we don't have a government now. So it's a state of total corruption. It's a state of no rule of law. This is on one hand. On the other side, we have seen, if we notice the indicators of armed conflict, or of about like issues that we can now face into a new stage of maybe armed conflict, we can say that all the indicators are present in Lebanon. Almost now 75% of Lebanese are on the poverty line. More than 50 or 60% are unemployed. The minimum wage is now less than $200. If you go, like Nada was now just talking about the lockdown and supermarkets, we were in lockdown, and all of a sudden what we noticed is that prices are now around 400% increase, whereas we don't have money. Why we don't have money? Because the banks do not give us our money, first. Second, even if we have money, you're not allowed to withdraw except a certain amount per month, which is not even equitable for you to pay your rent. So it's a vicious circle. You don't have businesses, you don't have money, you don't have any income, and still at the same time there is inflation. Now even the prices of gasoline has increased, lots of medications, even Panadol or paracetamol, like the thing that you need for COVID, right? You don't find in pharmacies. Oxygen is not there. The way if you want to go to hospitals, it's overcrowded. You don't have the social security. So it's a failed state. What is needed from our American sisters for us to help us move Lebanon from this stagnation state that is leading to the downfall at an increasing rate. Lebanon is also the victim of this regional dimension. So what is needed is now an investigation, definitely an international investigation that has to do with within the issue of Chapter 6. We're not talking about Chapter 7 at all. We're talking about Chapter 6, which calls for dialogue and mediation, track 3 or whatever. And what we need is for states, and especially the United States, because also the United States, like now, for example, in Lebanon, they have the largest embassy. So we think that the United States of America is keen to help Lebanon out, but we need to give also the American administration the tools for them to utilize. And we as civil society, this is our role. We need to have the responsibility of the international community to play its role to protect us, to protect the civilians, to protect everybody in here, to protect the Syrian refugee, to protect the Palestinian refugee, and to protect us Lebanese, to protect us within our genders, within our backgrounds, our ethnicities, our sexual orientations. So within that, we call to the right for us to have the responsibility to protect, as per the UN Secretary General Assembly in 2005, and to have Lebanon at the top priority within the Biden administration at this critical phase. Otherwise, we are heading at a very, very, very fast rate to an unknown future. I mean, we don't know tomorrow what will help. So within that, so this is a long-term thing, the R2P, for the responsibility to protect. But what we have for a short term is we need to live. I mean, like, we can talk about human rights, we can talk about protection, but if I'm being a victim and I am being like, my government is killing me when I don't have money, when I don't have food, when I don't have the simple social protection, when you have all this misusage of small arms, light weapon, when you see, like, even now people are even like having voice notes. If you're going to ATM, carry your gun with you. I mean, this is terrifying. So we need the responsibility to protect, and this we need to work on it together. We will give you the information, we will give you the data, and you will help with your policy maker. But still, what is needed at the grassroots level, we need to eat, we need to drink water, we need to pay our electricity, we need to pay. You just saw how the electricity went off, and then we had the generator. We need to pay our gasoline. We need to pay for our Panadol, which is not anymore in the pharmacy. That's why we need some small income projects. Lots of youth, maybe around, there was a huge number that already left the country because there are no more hope. But there are others that want to leave. We don't want them to leave. We don't want them to leave. To leave means that we're doomed. No, we need to give back at least the opportunity or the will to live. We need to have these small projects. There are lots of youth educated with maybe Ferial can talk now a bit about how women-led organization or women-led household, how we can do small projects. I mean, like, we had a small project we wanted to have after the explosion, to have income generating projects. Maybe we can talk about this. So small things make big impact. Trust me, when we have our hands together, just like as this call, with this sisterhood, we can move mountains. And I think this is the objective of this meeting. And I want to thank everybody here in the call. Maybe especially I want to thank Nada. It's very important for us to have Nada, who's also Lebanese, who can share with you exactly how we are feeling. I feel like, you know, we were just talking today, Hala and I, about having a video to talk about exactly how our days pass, because this is like with no makeover, just like how hard, how many challenges we have per day, and how we are able to overcome it. But to overcome it in a sustainable way, we need to have sustainable solutions. Thank you. Back to you, Nada. Thank you.
Thank you. We will come back. We will come back with a lot. I know it's frustrating, and I feel you. We do have a lot to talk about because we are suffering. Lebanese. I would like to talk about the effective way we can move forward from this. Like I said, again, we need to focus and talk effectively. How can we do this on the grassroots level and the US policy level? So talking about grassroots, before I move to Hala, I would like to talk to Ferial. Ferial is known for her grassroots works in Lebanon in general, with WILPF specifically, and her own organization in the Shuf Mountain. Welcome, Ferial. Can you share with us a little bit of your experience and how what Shireen talked about reflect on the grassroots level, and what do you see? And I know you and we had a conversation about arms being available to another extent today now with younger generation. We talked about programs and how we can work with prevention of arms sales to the juvenile and to the young kids, and refer them to joining the army or militia groups in that regard. So tell us a little bit about your experience in that regard.
Okay, thank you, Nada. My name is Frial Abu Hamdan. I've been IB International Board Member for 7 years and Vice President of WILPF Lebanon. I want to talk about my experience in 2013 when the Syrian immigrants came to Lebanon. Well, they came to Lebanon, they entered all. By the way, I live in Mount Lebanon, so I have very good experience of what the rural area, the rural people, are facing in Lebanon, not just in Beirut. We have too many issues in this part of Lebanon. In 2013, lots of Syrian immigrants came and they integrated in all the villages with no state monitoring them. Some of these people were having weapons with them, and they were making too many gatherings. So that made the community, the people in Mount Lebanon, very afraid of what's happening. So I felt this extreme fear that we have all the people living here. So we made the campaign called, we executed it, Women's Campaign for Social Safety, which we had, we make all the women feels they are the leaders of their community, of their neighborhood, and they will be observing everybody, the foreigners or even their children, especially because we have too many weapons spreading all with everybody to protect themselves. And it worked, and we had very good impact at that time. And nowadays, after what's happening here in Lebanon, and especially because we have the unemployment rate, which is very high, and the poverty rate, it's very high. The youth, men and women, university graduates or high school dropouts, and feeling the depression of all these problems that Lebanon is facing, is leading all these community to have suicide. We have too high rate between them. We need to fight these problems, and we want your help to face all these issues, because before, during the civil war, we have too many people have been moved to Iraq or to other fighting countries. They pay them just $500 and they will go, and till now most of them are missing. We don't know what happened to them. And so we don't want to repeat all these problems that we have faced before, and we don't want these youth, men or women, to go back to the political parties that they are part of all the system in Lebanon that's making all these corruption in Lebanon. And we don't want them to even to be enrolled or engaged with ISIS or any other things that might come pop up, because usually that's what happens when we have all this destruction in the country. So we want this. We like to help you, to help us in having this campaign to overcome all the, to help this part of the people to to overcome their fear and to have to accept their future and to overcome all this period of time. Especially nowadays, we have too many and we have weapons everywhere. Everybody is buying weapons, to protect themselves, because we reach the very low level of feeling safe, because because of all the issues, and especially because we have too many immigrants in our country. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rial. I want to like refer back to what you were saying. It all goes under the disarmament issues that WILPF US is strongly working on that, especially the Middle East Peace and Justice Committee. And I think this is something we could tap into, or we could look into, because I understand disarmament is an international issue as far as arms sales. But when you see it on a level of small communities and children from the ages of 13 to 17, those are the time these kids should be looking into their schools and their future and their education. They are being swayed to join these militia groups and join army groups that it's not taking them anywhere. I know, Friel, you and I, we had discussed this tremendously, and disarmament overall will help the grassroots levels for sure, but we have to look into more targeted programs for the area. And I know your struggle is coming from experience. So thank you, Friel. I would like to go to Hala. Thank you for joining us, Hala.
Thank you, Nada, for having me, and apologies for the delay. I'm having internet issues. I'm in an Airbnb and it's not always.
We're glad you're here, Hala. I want you to give your opinion and just keep
accessible. Sorry.
Yes, I know it's not accessible, and you are in Portugal, and I don't know, it's probably, you know, all over the world we are having struggles, whether Lebanon or Lebanon, Beirut, Portugal, even here, you know, so we are doing our best. Look at us, we are here together, so this is good. I want to tell you, Hala, I'm gonna give you the chance, but we want to focus, and we said that in the beginning, we want to focus on building on the webinar. Where do we go from here? And specifically, where do we go from here, Hala? And I want to hear your professional opinion on this specifically, okay? And how do you see us moving from here? So go ahead, Hala.
Thank you so much. I think that, you know, was kind of explaining. Lebanon is basically, Lebanese people are held captive of a militia, not just a militia, the whole political class, a mafia group that is basically driving people to immigrate, driving people to extreme poverty, vulnerability. I just shared an article from OCHA, you know, the UN relief organization. And I myself have been working in the development and environmental field for decades in Lebanon, and really we were not able to on advances we did. The progress we did was undermined by the current crises, and you know, the poverty levels that people are reaching now are unprecedented, and we didn't even have this during the civil war. So what we do moving forward? Again, sorry to talk about problems here, but the experience of people in the region with international, with foreign intervention has been extremely bad. So any request from, or any lobbying within the US to within the US government to act on the Lebanese people will unfortunately not be trusted, because our brothers and sisters in Syria did not receive what they were promised. You know, the red line by Obama, it never happened. And when there were foreign interventions in Iraq, it went sour, and in other places as well. So unfortunately, the foreign intervention does not resonate well with people in Lebanon. So we can do as civil society, like direct civil society to civil society cooperation, maybe projects to extremely trusted civil society actors, which I think that we in the WILPF Lebanon are able to access that, you know, that kind of roster, or to actually coordinate a process of first of all doing a needs assessment, a comprehensive needs assessment, and based on that needs assessment, we can come with a specific project on the side of medical care. As Shireen explained, we have you know, gaps, and people are in need of medication. Medical care is mostly private. It's extremely expensive at a time when people do not have resources. So really, I think there's a lot of work to do to mobilize international solidarity and create that kind of cooperation with civil society organizations. Unfortunately, we cannot get anything to be run by the state. The state is completely untrusted on many levels. And when the explosion happened, even the streets were, as you probably all saw, were cleaned up by youth and civil society organizations. And even then, when we all got you know, calls from all over the world, and people from all over the world wanting to donate, and said, you know, how can we help? What can we do? First, we all gave them the Red Cross first. The Red Cross had and then we gave them a list of trusted organizations that we actually know almost on a personal level they are, etc. Because of corruption has really hit us in the face, and very badly. And we have the trust issues, and you know, inequalities are really widening. I mean, there is the Lebanese population, there is the refugee population, also driven to it's on if the article I shared, 87% the poverty line. So everyone is affected in Lebanon. There isn't one community that is not harmed by what's happening. So my recommendation is, how can we make sure that we create that that line of solidarity that is as direct as possible, not going through all these any bureaucratic systems like UN systems, and where you know, the money does not, the bulk of the money does not reach the people. So yeah, I think we can do that kind of work, and that would create jobs for people, and see how we can create opportunities. Do an initial fundraising, maybe concept notes. We can together and make sure we get some funding to start the process on, you know, that first of all, that dialogue, putting all around the table the people who can work together or address the most urgent issues, do a sort of prioritization, and then move into bigger projects. So this is my take on things, because otherwise all the other policy issues will be, you know, more complex and complicated. And honestly, the Lebanese population are exhausted and have no trust, neither in the international system nor in other countries, neighboring or otherwise. We were all, even when the French, you know, the French government or the French president came and said, he said some things repeatedly to the Lebanese people: we will not leave you. But in fact, we feel that we are abandoned. We feel that we are just, things are just going backwards, and we're like falling, and with no net, no safety net, no nothing. So I think it's up to us to help ourselves. among the projects, I think there should be a lot of civic education, because unfortunately there's a lot of remaining supporters to this political class, and we need to tackle these hard questions. Why are people following these corrupt, obviously self-serving, powerful people? I don't know if you heard now the issue of vaccination. It's unheard of. You know, the political class took the vaccines of you know, the elderly and the frontline workers, and that's a scandal. That is scandalous. Anywhere in the world, that would really turn tables around. That would really put people in jail. But we are not able to render them accountable. So we really need to tackle these issues. We really needed to put the problems on the table and see how you need to think with us. Also, like sharing experiences. You know, how did civil society or, you know, revolutions work, or building power work from in other places, so that we can try to apply them in Lebanon, try to train people on how they can be effective in the change-making process. So all of that, I think, it's not just one thing. It's really a whole state building process that we just need to do it with the people on the ground, and people need the resources for that. You know, I need to be able to tell people, come and attend this meeting, and you know, we will find your time will be rewarded. You know, all of this, it's not just, you know, working for it as a cause, because people have lost their last breath. Everyone needs to work, everyone needs to survive. So really need to, you know, make them feel comfortable doing this kind of work. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Yes, just building on what you just said, Hala, civil society to civil society. So if we are looking in that regard, I want to go back to a question that came from Jeannie Silver. And before I go down the chat and I'm looking at the others, Jeannie sent a quick one that says 3 to 4 specific actions. Lebanese section, what would you like us to do in the US as far as what the Lebanese need? Obviously, we've been saying this over and over again, but again, I want to put the emotions aside and put all the craziness that we are experiencing in Lebanon, because we can talk about this forever, but I want to put it down into 1, 2, 3. How do you see it in your opinion? And I like when Hala said civil society to civil society, because that has proven to resonate with people. Even though the October 17 revolution, it's still kind of, you know, they don't know where they are moving from. But if we go back to the root and say, let's talk with the civil societies, how do you see us proceeding, Shireen? And I do have a couple of things for Shireen too, because somebody else said, they want to come back to something you were talking about earlier. But let's just pinpoint the 3 points, Shireen. And again, if we leave the emotions aside and if we want to think logically, and you have somebody from the outside looking at this, how do you see it, civil society to civil society, or as far as a process of assessments? Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the first thing should be the issue of corruption. How we can raise the issue of corruption from the Lebanese case up to the international level, because it has to start with the corruption and the accountability, and the corruption and accountability can cover lots of areas. The second thing, I think maybe the second thing has to do with our day-to-day survival mechanisms, and this has to do with what kind of, I think Charlotte here was talking about a GoFundMe campaign. How can we come up with a GoFundMe campaign, and what are the mechanisms of that campaign? How can we push it forward? I will tell you some ideas I was putting forward after the explosion. We were thinking about, like, if we can have materials from that explosion, be like, they can be like some handmade material like from the glass of the explosion, or some embroidery from women-led organizations that can have messages of love, of hope, of peace, of whatever, from Lebanon to women all over the world. Within this context, we can talk about with women from the US. So we can, yeah, definitely, 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 Hala. Now you can jump in. So we can have this kind of exchange in terms of these kind of small businesses of people where they can sell their products and get their products back in cash money. What is needed as a third step? Maybe let Hala come in because she's thinking of something, and then I'll take it from there.
Okay.
Hala,
Before,
thank you,
before,
Nada.
before I go to Hala, I want Hala to hold on for 1 minute, because I would like to give the chance to some of our members that they like to also express. Just, I want to remind you that this will be timed now, because I don't want to go take a long time on the questions and the responses. So this way, if we time it, everybody will have the chance to talk. And I want to have Teresa saying that she would like to ask a question. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yes, Shireen, I was impressed by you saying that Lebanon is a failed state. And I thought about Libya in that sense of a failed state. And so I'm curious about of the description of Lebanon as a failed state. I know that these problems with the government, and then of course the unemployment, the poverty, but Lebanon has managed to escape military intervention. And that's what we must avoid, in my opinion, that it would not become another Libya at the hands of the United States government or any other governments in the region or elsewhere. But the Convention Against Corruption seems a significant tool to use. And I thank Nada for posting it, because I went and looked and saw that the US is a signer and has ratified it. I saw that Lebanon has ratified the convention. So there should be a way with 187 countries that have become a part of that convention, that we should be able to come up with a strategic approach to using that Convention Against Corruption, which is pretty broad, but it sounds like it really has teeth and it's powerful. So in terms of our action steps, how can we use that convention, in your view, to support change in Lebanon?
Thank you so much, Teresa. This point was set as one of the priority areas that WILPF Lebanon wants us to have in this discussion. We were having this discussion and Diala was leading on that. Unfortunately, Diala is not here with us today, but she had the whole argument and the justification of how we will go on with this corruption. And what we were talking about is that this is the cornerstone of things that we want to move forward to, because it can lead to a domino effect. Maybe I will try to see if we can develop this in a written form, send it to you in terms of like how we can move forward with steps.
Sounds good, Shireen.
Thank you.
I think that's the way to go about things, to follow up on this quickly with written notes, so it's fresh in our mind. I have Barbara Taft in the stack. Go ahead, Barbara.
I have a question in terms of the monetary situation. I understand that if banks are not going to let you take your money out, that maybe it's not a good idea to put money in banks. If we're able to raise money somehow to help with development, how would that be able to be in the hands of the people?
Yeah, so this is different. Now there is something called fresh money. Fresh money is something that we receive right now. We can receive it through the WILPF account. We have a WILPF account in Lebanon, and we can receive it in dollars up till now. So we don't know if there can be changes.
Sorry, Shireen, since from now on, it's not, there is no account fresh money. I was in the bank for fresh money. The only way you can use it, it's by Western Union.
Okay, we'll have to look into that.
Okay, I have to get back to you because the last thing I withdrew money was fresh money. So if this is a new thing, then these I go back to Teresa, so you can see like more indicators of a failed, corrupted thieves. They want us to be killed, but we will survive.
Okay, I have Odile. She have her hand up. Odile. Odile, you are mute. Can you unmute yourself?
I watched a webinar from WILPF International where activists from Libya, Syria, and Yemen were speaking. And they say that women are not invited in a peace process, even when there are European stakeholders helping with an economic and rebuilding and also peace processes. So how can we maybe send a letter to the Security Council saying that this is not acceptable and that local women must be invited to be part of any rebuilding or peace process situation?
Thank you, Odile. I'm going to have Hala reply to this, and then we'll go back to the stack. Go ahead, Hala.
Sorry, I didn't get the question properly. What is the process for engaging women in the peace process?
Yes, and or in economic rebuilding.
No.
When Europeans are meeting with local people, it's always local men.
Yeah, maybe Shireen can take it. I worked in development a lot, and this is not the case. There isn't. I even work in Saudi Arabia because I'm an anthropologist, and there's no such thing as you are prevented from meeting women. I just know one thing, that there's a very skewed process for the Syrian refugees. This is a very dangerous process. I think that should be undermined. They are putting men in charge of the camps. So to make it easier for UN organizations to enter and work with the camps, there's like a man, and our president, Noha Ghosn, knows this well because she worked with the Sad Nail camp.
Part of that, Hala. Yes.
Yeah. So that is very dangerous because sometimes this man asks favors from little girls or women in order to get the aid process, to them or whatever. And this is really very dangerous. That's the only concern that I would raise. But in terms of when you want to go to local communities and meet women, I can assure you this is not a problem, neither in Lebanon, nor in Syria, nor anywhere else. It's just a case that I saw in the Lebanese Syrian refugee camps. And I think this is very dangerous, and we need to address this. And I'm not sure how UN organizations function with this system in place. Thank you.
Yeah, this is the work of UNSCR, Hala, when it has to do with refugees at the grassroots level. You're exactly right. Regarding Odile's question, unfortunately, the special representative of the Secretary General or like these international, the problem is that in the international organization, including WILPF, the way they are dealing with the issue of women at the peace table, they're dealing with it at a parallel level. So when the special advisor or the special representative in the countries, they have like special meetings with women. but they don't have the women at that table. And I think this is the problem. They should not allow it in the first place, and they should have the UN mission accountable for that, in light not only of the 1325 resolution, but also in light of what the Secretary General is saying of the meaningful participation of women. But since you're having women at the side table, then she cannot be at the side table and then at the same time say women they have to be at the table. So I think it's an organic problem starting from the very beginning. It applies to Yemen, it applies to Syria, it applies to Libya definitely, and it applies everywhere in the Arab world. And the question here is that all these fundings and all these money that went to empower, and I don't like in here the word empowerment. How do you want these women to be at the table when you're spending millions of dollars saying we want to empower women to be at the table? You cannot empower women because you're not empowering men. These men are not empowered. They are the men with guns. So men with guns are allowed to be at the table, whereas women-led grassroots peace builders are not. And I think the way the international organizations, because they're doing this part of encouraging with UN women to be at these side tables, I think they are unintentionally part of this women not being able to be at the peace table. There should be new strategies, and definitely the results have to be different. Not only that, women are not part of the political nor the military. So not part of the DDR, the disarmament, disintegration and reintegration, and they are not also part of the peace processes. So this is something that we need to raise, and we need to raise with the responsibility. Thank you, Odile.
I want to just go back to something that Charlotte has raised in the chat about the act. I want to go back and read what Charlotte said. It's about basically is accountability for killing journalists. And the last one is the Luqman Saleem. And this is the press release that came out in February of 2021. They are urging President Biden to look into the assassination of Luqman Saleem. And it's available. I can send you the link, Charlotte. This is the only act that I know of. The Office of Foreign Asset Control also used the Magnitsky Act against Gibran Bassil, the president of the Free Patriotic Movement in Lebanon. Yeah. So let's go back to the chat. I don't know exactly who's asking questions here.
Nada, if I may just add regarding Luqman Saleem, even the USA ambassador was there at the funeral, and it was her first time to be in Dahiya, which is a very closed area who's supposed to belong to Hezbollah. So that was also like a very, very courageous step from the ambassador to say no to the killing and no to the shutting up of the free voices.
Yes. Okay. I don't see your hands. If somebody have their hand up, I don't see. I can't see you all. Please.
Charlotte has her hands up. Charlotte.
Good. Charlotte, can
you? Just with regard to the killing, you know, I'm a journalist, so I'm approaching Lebanon from a certain perspective, having been absolutely horrified by the explosion and disgusted at the fact that it's not being adequately investigated. In my honest opinion, I'm still asking who lit the match, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
In any event, yeah, I mean, what was he investigating? What was making him so dangerous? Does anybody know? What was he digging into the explosion, for instance? Can you answer that, Shireen? Do you know, or any of you?
Actually, I had projects with Luqman Slim. Luqman works on memory of the war. So he has a huge library of testimonies during the war, okay? Maybe he's a bit, let's say, the way he talks about maybe the relationship with Israel was something very different from other journalists. He wrote a letter in early 2019 saying that he received threats and he hold Hezbollah and Amal accountable for his or any kind of threat that he might have. Even like his house, they had like some posters at his house saying شو يعني كاتم صوت the gun with no sound شو اسمه silencer. So they had like the power to the silencer. So there were some slogans outside his home, which he said that they were scary. Even during the revolution, he was leading on one of the tents that had a very, very fruitful discussion. I used to always go to that tent. We had different tents during the revolution for dialogue to talk about what kind of Lebanon we had. So, you know, the revolution was really something so interesting to document and to look into the different things that were done during the revolution. So one of the tents, it was, he was a partner in that. We used to talk about the peace agreements in Lebanon, what kind of Lebanon we want. And definitely he used to talk about the need to disarm Hezbollah and to have the arms just within the Lebanese army, to have a, and this is his definition of a unified and strong Lebanon. I don't know if Hala, you want to add something, or Faryal?
Yeah, I mean, the Luqman was not really a journalist. He's mainly, of course, he writes and he documents and he is in the literary world, but he was very vocal. He was killed because he was a vocal opinion. So I think he was killed for his opinion, and he's not the first in Lebanon. So most people who were assassinated, they were assassinated because they had a discourse, you know, narratives and messaging that goes against, you know, what is in stock for Lebanon. So we had very progressive, even religious leaders. We had, you know, faith leaders. Usually faith leaders have a bad connotation in our country because it's become very sectarian. We really want to see secular institutions come up. But we had, you know, very good faith leaders. One of them is the one who founded the Amal movement. So he disappeared after or during a visit in Libya. He was a peace. He always called for peace. He was sort of a Gandhi. He used to fast for peace, what have you. But yeah, so these people are killed for their opinions, not the typical kind of killing of journalists that you see. So Luqman had a lot of platforms, anti-establishment, you know, kind of line. And he had lots of platforms with Al Jazeera and others where he was hosted, and people didn't like what he said. And, you know, today, social media is very powerful, and whatever he tweets was not to the liking of the establishment. So this is the issue. And so, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are being harassed for Facebook posts or Twitter posts. It's amazing how we are in a you know, in a policed society I think not just in Lebanon, but in many, many places around the world. I work in climate change, and I was doing a campaign with videos showing climate impacts in Latin America. And somebody from Honduras or Guatemala, I can't remember, just said, please don't put me in the credits because there could be a crackdown and I could be, you know, even when you talk about, you know, the right to be protected from climate impacts, you are vulnerable and you are exposed nowadays to be, Russia or places like that as well. Activists are continuously harassed. So this guy was an activist, basically.
So the right to protection, this is another example, and one of the things I raise is the International Federation of Journalists has a whole committee that deals with the protection of journalists, and my hunch is that they have followed this, but I would be willing to get in touch with them to see if they're doing anything with regard to Lebanon, if you would like that.
Of course, we would like that. I mean, it's really strange. I mean, what we really also need to know is that kind of accountability within the US, right? I mean, we know that there's intelligence about the explosion in Lebanon. Where is that? Where is transparency about that? You know, why don't the CIA tell us what they found?
Yeah.
I don't want necessarily a Lebanese process, and I don't want an international process. Let the CIA uncover what they found. Let the other intelligence in other countries let us know. People need to know who killed them, right? I mean, the victims are furious and they're every day protesting and doing stuff, but no one is listening. That's the problem, and I think that these voices. What you as our sisters in a North country and supposedly in a context that respects human rights, these voices must be heard. You know, the voices of the victims in Lebanon must be heard, and victimhood has become in Lebanon. I mean, in a day, everything is illegally happening to us. Everything. You know, we're killed for no reason. There's no value for our human life. There is no value for years of people's savings. Can you imagine you're turning 80 and you've saved all your life and your money is gone. You can't do anything with it. You're stuck. I mean, this is beyond reason and rationality. So these things should be raised. I don't know how much there's awareness about that, and there should be. And maybe we should do more videos and, you know, do a campaign on social media, a big campaign. You know, all of this needs to be, as I mentioned earlier, we need to sit on a table and start developing these concepts and concept notes to see what we can get funding from and work on it. You know, that's the only way. I think we should do it ourselves, civil society to civil society.
That's true. Thank you. That's true, Hala. I want to just go back to what Odile was saying earlier, that she watched a video on the International WILPF about peacemaking and how they are excluding women on the discussion tables. I want to tell you, like, for somebody that's looking at the Middle East from an outsider, Lebanon have a different dynamic, I have to say, because of our sectarian system. And we have the president of Lebanon is a Christian. It's a Christian government, you know, it's a Maronite. And we do share it with the Sunni and the Shiite. So there is a different color in Lebanon if you compare it to the rest of the Middle East, which is, you know, when you're looking at Libya, or when you're looking at other countries, the majority is on the ruling government is an Islamic government. So sometimes what applies to other countries does not really apply to Lebanon because of the sectarian system that our government is. And so I want to just also tell you that I shared the PowerPoint that I had up on the screen earlier with you. Thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte's leaving too. Thank you, Darian. She had to go. Anybody have a question? I can't see you all. I can't see your hands, but speak up, please.
I have a question regarding US policy. What should we focus on in the US on Lebanon?
Okay. Who would like to answer that? Anybody? Shireen, Hala? Frial? Hello? Shireen, you're muted.
Yeah, I
Well,
can
okay, okay, Hala.
Go ahead.
no, go
Hala.
ahead. Yeah, I spoke a lot.
To Frial.
Well, before all the grants or the USAID grants that was working, the projects that they were implementing in Lebanon, they were mostly implemented in South or in North, where the Hezbollah, is very active there. And I asked them, why don't you give us in Mount Lebanon? And they say, well, this is the only way we can fight Hezbollah. So they've been doing this because they want people to be, to be with the working, with the American embassy again, in this way to be against Hezbollah. But it didn't work. Till now, they were taking the money, doing the projects, and there were no impact whatsoever. So, I'm saying that their policies, they have to be changed, especially, in Lebanon, working in the different areas, not just South or North.
I see Teresa's hand is up. Teresa, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Shireen and others about what secular society is like. I hear you with Muslims and Christians being dominant in the government, but I noticed when in the initial webinar, there was talk about socialists and other formations that would be more inclined for the kind of change that would mean that people would have liberation from the dominance of patriarchal rule. So I'm curious if there's any real organized expression in secular society of people who are part of revolutionary movements like socialists and of that nature.
Yeah, thank you, Teresa. Yesterday, actually, the Maronite cardinal, had big supporters. He was calling for international investigations. And still, the cardinal himself was saying we need to have a separation between the church, the religion, and the state. So, if I may call it that. Within the revolution groups, if I may say, there are lots of opinions. Definitely at the heart is the state building. With state building, we need to see the issue of community security, community insecurity, which has religion as its heart. But the Lebanese makeup and women's rights fall within the religious jurisdiction. So when we talk about secularism, it's something that is necessity and called for in terms of equality of citizens in front of law and to make up this new Lebanon. But if we want to talk about the real thing at the grassroots, or maybe the real thing in terms of how many percentages of people are talking about a secular state or like a civilian state, they are not a majority. They are not a majority. I mean, they're not a majority to the bone. They might be a majority when they're talking, for example, about women rights in religious courts. But still, it's I think in the short term, it's very hard to happen in Lebanon. It's something that the politicians have in terms of this mafia power that they have, and this is what's maintaining them. You know, it's the sugar that they feed on. It's something that they feed on, and this is part that is built on with the corruption thing. This is by the way, Lebanon in terms of Lebanon is a secular state. Lebanon is not a religious state, but in practice, the way it's practiced, every community, every religious community has its own religious court.
Hala, would you like to add anything on Teresa's question?
Teresa's question about sorry, I was thinking about Odil's question.
Go ahead. Yeah, it's interesting what you apply to Odile in the chat, but go ahead. Why don't you? I think what Teresa was asking is about if the secular system are within the revolution, and if they are showing. And I think Shireen answered part of that on the different systems and their part in the revolution. So if you like to tap on that a little bit, Hala, and Odile's question too, please.
I mean, the unfortunate story is the French. And then when Hariri came at the end of the Civil War, they actually institutionalized the sectarian system. So it's a whole institutional process to reverse that, and it's not possible. Civil society is the only secular hope in Lebanon. And this is why I keep coming back to it, because everything else is in the hands of the system, and the system is deeply sectarian, because that serves the interests of the religious leaders who are benefiting a lot from all the marriages. We don't have civil marriage. Women's rights are trampled upon because we go through religious courts, and they are archaic and they are disrespectful to women. We have all no proper child support. Had I not had an agreement with my husband, he would have taken my children away. So, you know, I mean, it is a very archaic system that are obliged to live under because it's part of the institutions and the political system. They are both benefiting each other as for at the individual level most. Need strong.
I think
you know, blood.
I think Hala's having
yeah, I think what let me just to sum up what Hala was saying is that the religious authorities and the political authorities, they act as a team, institutionalized political authority. And once they are like hand in hand, because this is how the system is surviving. And these are the pillars of the state of Lebanon in terms of what we have now. So that's why it's intertwined, though in the constitution, Lebanon is not a religious state.
Okay.
No worries, Hala.
No worry, Hala, yes. Okay, so I think I've been told that we only have a short time. I mean, we can take this last 10 minutes. I want to just, it's hard to wrap this up because I find that, you know, even though we said a lot, but we didn't, in a way. I don't know if everybody feels with me. Teresa have her hand up, I see it, but I just want to say, I want to ask the question to, a last question to the three of you, and just keep it very short. And then Barbara's going to end this and we're going to say goodbye after. I wish we can talk forever, but I'm going to take Teresa's question next. Go ahead, Teresa.
Well, I think the conversation about secular versus religious state. And I did post in the chat that I generally thought of Lebanon as more secular than the surrounding states like Israel and some of the other states who seem to be rooted in a religious approach to governing. And so Shireen has really helped me understand how that really kind of looks in reality. And I think, is it Hala who was saying that the real secular expression is seen through civil society. And that is kind of what has to be built up to make the kind of change that needs to be made. And of course, WILPF Lebanon is a part of civil society. And so of the many organizations that exist in civil society, how can they come together and create a united front, so to speak, Shireen, so that the civil society organizations create a united front against the corruption? That is what I was looking to. And just on the question of what we've achieved here, I think the promise of Shireen to put something in writing on the Convention Against Corruption is the key takeaway for me from this, so that we will approach it, because that is a pretty powerful convention from what I read. So I think that that is the action step that is kind of coming out of this important discussion today. Thank you.
That's true. Thank you, Teresa. So let's wrap up. I'm going to go with Frial, Hala, Shireen, and then Barbara. Go ahead, Frial.
Well, when we talk about corruption, that means it goes to all the levels of people. So that's great. I'm very happy with this, conclusion that you had. Okay, Shireen.
Nada, you're muted.
Sorry, go ahead, Hala. Yes. Hala, can you hear me?
I mean, I think everything was said. I agree that we need to try as much as possible to put all the pressure points, whether through the convention, as I mentioned, lobbying, internal lobbying in the US, to kind of question why all these politicians have interests in many Western countries. Why are they not being pressured with their businesses that are widespread all over the US and other places? The other thing is, as I said, relief and at least medical assistance to the affected communities. And just basically continuing this dialogue, continuing to think together, to do a workshop possibly in order for us to prioritize, fundraise, think about campaigns, raise awareness on what's going on. Everything is key. And I don't think that any one of those who gave their lives, whether Luqman, Slim, or the people who died in the explosions, or others who are committing suicide, it should not go to waste. So we need to find a way for us to work on this and at least raise awareness.
Thank you, Hala. Shireen?
Thank you, Hala. Just for Teresa, yeah, Lebanon is special in spite of everything. This mosaic country of 18 sects and religion makes it a special country. Second, the freedom of speech that we had prior to this past maybe a year, and it's escalating lately. It means that the will and the voices of people are really hurting those militia, mafia, political leaders. So what I recommend is that let's do it in two ways. Let's have also, like, each person maybe in here, like each one of you who asked a question, let's put these in, send us your questions, send us also your concerns. And I think also if we can have the entry point as this corruption, then it's fair for us. Let's say this. Second, we will do as promised, we will write something in writing. What I think is of important, we have the problem, but still we do not have the mindset of the US citizen. You have it. So also these messages of advocacy, I think you're better equipped to see how we can get our problems, but still like we know a bit like how we can solve it in a way or another, but we need you to deliver it in your own languages. So yeah, the Convention on Corruption, exactly. So this is exactly what is needed. We need to move ahead, and we know that we can do it together. We are a movement. We are a movement, and I'm glad that it started. It started now with the culmination of everything. So this is exactly what is needed. On behalf of WILPF Lebanon, also, I want to thank you all for your heartfelt feelings and opinions. Thank you so much for all the comments that were really meaningful to us. And it also like, it brings us like the will to have a better tomorrow, because you know we don't have any more hopes or dreams or planning. We do it just like by the hour. So I feel I have a very good tomorrow to start writing about this Convention on Corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen. Before I give it back to Barbara, I just want to acknowledge your tears, Shireen. I don't want to leave here without acknowledging your tears. When Darian talked, you had tears, and I did too. So I want to tell you I love you, and here's Barbara. She's going to wrap it up.
First of all, thank you so much for giving us this overview. It may be a little bit confusing because there were so many issues. We talked about poverty, we talked about fear, distrust of foreigners and foreign intervention, and the need to mobilize international solidarity. We talked about economic issues, despair, and especially we talked about corruption as a major issue that we need to be working on. I think the concept of keeping in dialogue is extremely important, and establishing the prioritization, which was mentioned, so that we can know what order we want to do things, and later we move on to the more difficult issues. I think that's really important. We want to acknowledge the fact that there is a certain fear of abandonment and feeling that nobody's paying attention. Well, we are, and I want to let you know that we intend to do something about it. And there were other issues like women in the peace process, and a need for new strategies. Fundraising was mentioned, and I think that's really important. We need to talk in terms of how we're going to help to do the things that need to be done first, and then to move on to other things, to build a movement. And this involves talking with not only our elected leaders, but also with friends and neighbors, and letting them know what's going on, because this is not getting out there enough into the public sphere, and we just need to do that. We need to help to move Lebanon, as somebody said, from stagnation, and to see that international investigations do take place so that everybody knows what's happening and why it happened, because I think the why is a big question mark for a lot of people. Many people don't want to get involved because they don't know enough of the details. And so we have to help to get those details out into the public and to move forward with this. We're with you, and we want to make sure that we can help with some of the things that you have said, and do it bit by bit, but to move forward constantly so that we can help you to solve many, many problems that we know you have.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This